What's going on, everybody? I was kind of hoping for some music, but it didn't play, and because I don't want to get shut down by YouTube, I instantly came live. Gonna give it a second to see if you guys can hear me okay. And while we're doing that, don't forget to check me out at twitter.com/lore reloaded. Of course, twitch.tv/lore reloaded. What's going on, yep, sounds good. Fantastic. Hope all of y'all are doing well. Hey, really fun thing I want to show you guys real quick before we get into this. I just think it's really cool. And I want you guys to think it's really cool as well. TeePublic, I have recently partnered up with. They're giving me some special discounts and stuff that I'm able to give you guys and all that good stuff. And because of that, I'm able to make my own designs and stuff. And I came up with a really cool new design that the trans warp isn't... of course. Can't ever do anything right. The trans warp it's not in the movie shirt, which I think is really, really cool. You guys should check it out. It's at TeePublic in the description below. With that out of the way, let's say hi to a couple people, see what's going on, and have a conversation about my most recent video. I'm going to somewhat be honest with you guys. That one, I did it in a different style, and originally that style was put together to do for about 2 days of what it would do. And I took all that and I condensed it into 1 day because I really need to get a video out today. But because of that, I'm probably taking tomorrow off, so I'm going to have a conversation with you. And then Friday, we're going to have the Battle of the Line for Babylon 5. Next week, I'll be getting some more Mech Warrior out, Star Trek, of course, and I might do some Doctor Who. Not convinced of that. But with all of that out of the way, let's say hi to a couple people. We got Captain George. Captain George, you and me need to talk offline sometime, buddy. Not today, probably, because, again, I'm tired, but probably after. Carter Brandt, what's going on? Archangel Ortiz. Jay Wiggs, always a party when Jay Wiggs is here. Swish the Fish. We got Valor J Omega. Oliver Sacco, what's going on? Xavier Games. Everybody can now relax because Do It To It is now here. Or do we, to we in the Latin. And of course, our Wixel Barnwell. Loving it. While we're talking about that, guys, let me know what you thought about the last video. Because again, if I went to do that, that would probably be 3 videos a week, if that. But they would be 18 to 30 minutes long because I'm doing so much more in depth. And I don't know, I'm on the fence. And I may switch it up. I may have, maybe like my Starship lores will be continued what they are, because really that's just a breakdown. There's not a ton I can do with that. And then these on trials or the battle breakdowns, I will be completely redoing the Star Trek Dominion War series starting in 2019. I'm putting a ton of effort into that because that is my flagship. That's really what got the channel off after the viral video, and I want to do another one, but now kind of with the experience I have now, because I think I can take it to the next level. And you know, I sit here and create a show saying that I'm going to talk about Sisko and what he did with Eddington, and I just don't talk about it. I've been hanging out with the anti-tracker too much. Swishfish says, I like the latest video. It's a DS9 episode for one, which I'm a big fan of. Who doesn't like DS9? Communist. That's who. Super Saiyan Man. From what I remember about the episode, Sisko only reset the status quo. The Maquis made a Cardassian world unable to support Cardassian life. Sisko makes a Maquis colony unable to do the same. First off, I still counter that it's not a Maquis colony. Maquis colonies don't exist. At best, you could make the argument that was on Twitter about the it being a Hamas situation. But even that, I'm not convinced of. It's true they switched it. And that is absolutely true. So, by that logic, and are you guys ready to get mad? Because I'm about to bring a real life thing in. Okay, are you guys really... Okay, hear me out. Because apparently it's okay to do that. Apparently it's insanely okay as long as everything switches in their status quo. All right, so hear me out. Hear me out. The United States creates a bomb, and this bomb has a chemical weapon in it, and this chemical weapon will only impact a certain amount of people. Let's say Israelis. And then we'll create a different bomb, And that bomb only affects a certain other kind of people. Let's say Palestine. And then let's just drop those opposite bombs into the other side of them and then force those peoples to switch. And it's okay because they're switching the exact same. So it's just a 1-for-1. And we know that people in Palestine want to be in Israel anyway. And you know what? Screw the Israelis. Even if they want to keep their homes, it's the same, right? We're just switching it over. So let's just do that. And of course, when I get into that, Trek Yards comes on. What's going on, Trek Yards? Always a pleasure to have Trek Yards in the hizzy. But yeah, so I mean, why don't we just do that? Or you know, we could just pick X country. How about Florida? No one likes Floridians. I mean, they're not really, you know, people when you think about it, Floridians. Or no, Californians. Californians are even less than Floridians. So let's just bomb California and let's trade it for, oh, I don't know. Oh, hell. How about London? Or, you know, London plus whatever else just to get the right amount of places. I mean, you know. Of course, is that an even switch? I don't know. We'll have to think about it. But do you see my sarcasm? You see where that's going there? Just because they switch, that to me is a horrific thing. It was a 1-to-1. That's and I'm not saying it's the, like, I forget who said it. So I'm not even saying that, you know, you as an individual, but to me, that comes off as evil in a way. That thought comes off evil. Tomas having to head out. Tomas, thanks for coming, buddy. If Sisko recognized those colonies as Maquis colonies, doesn't that also mean that his actions were a military action against a sovereign state? Yeah, you see, I have a real big problem with calling it a Maquis colony. R. Wixel, got to get back to work, but before I go, just want to say you're for the uniform analysis. Fantastic. Glad you liked it, R. Wixel. Yeah, calling it a Maquis colony is problematic, one might say, for me. I'm not convinced. Buddy, what are you doing? Matthew Faustini, a triggered Floridian. What's going on? Triggered Floridians for the win. Actually, I'm just joking. I'm taking my girlfriend down to Florida, to Navarre Beach, coming up shortly. I love Navarre Beach. It's too hot in Florida, though, man. Could not live there. Trek Yards, what are we talking about? So, in my latest video, which if you haven't seen, I don't blame you, we're talking about Sisko's decision to utilize trilithium resin against the Maquis. A lot of people have wanted me to do a live stream on it to have a back and forth, so I figured we would just talk about it. Jamie says that I'm very sexy. Thank you. You too are sexy, Jamie. Hope your head feels better. You need to get over that headache. But yeah, I generally am of the opinion that what Sisko did was clearly illegal, an illegal action. I mean, and there's so many ways to look at it. Sisko deserves to be in a jail cell for what he did. First off, is he in the demilitarized? Man, dude. So let me say this, not to get off topic, but let me say this. That video, that 18-minute video, I did 30 minutes of audio recording and cut out whatever 18 minus 30 is, because those were all the times I messed up. But anyway, Sisko took the Defiant into the demilitarized zone. That's the first issue. If we're going to have issues, first off, he took the Federation's only warship into the demilitarized zone. That's one. Well, let's just remove that. Let's not worry about that. He used trilithium resin on a civilian target. Now, people will say it's a Maquis target. I don't believe that it's a Maquis target, but even if it's a Maquis target, it doesn't make it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it accurate, unless what Trek Yard says is correct. That the Maquis aren't people like Californians, and then you don't have to worry about it. So I don't know. Darren Wagner says, I don't think Sisko was written as inconsistently and as crazy as Janeway was. Every captain in Star Trek has some moments that are questionable, in my view. You know, interestingly enough, here's the opinion I've come to on this. And it's always interesting, because I'll have my base opinion on something. I've watched Deep Space Nine so many times, and I'll have a really base opinion on how I feel on something like Sisko. And then when I start breaking down the lore, how my mind changes as I really take a deeper look at it. I think that Sisko, in this instance, was written as evil. I really do. I called him evil, and I believe that. I like to do the evil Janeway parody. I got that from SF Debris. I think it's wonderful. But I honestly consider Janeway to be a tragic hero. That she suffered from post-traumatic stress syndromes from everything that's happened, and that you slowly see her degrade. I sincerely and truly believe that. I don't know that she's ever evil for evil's sake. Sisko is evil in this instance, in my opinion, and it shows a major flaw. To not be able to handle betrayal like that, which would impact anybody, don't get me wrong, but to be willing to take out civilians is very telling of the character. You know, and I honestly almost want to break it down, if I'm honest, because the more I think about it, the more I want to tie it to Wolf 359. Because hear me out here. In Wolf 359, yeah, the editor is finally here. At Wolf 359, Jean-Luc Picard betrays... Now, he didn't really, but we're looking at it from Sisko's point of view. Jean-Luc Picard betrays the Federation. He's forced to, but it's still a betrayal. That betrayal leads to the death of his wife. And so, from there, tying back to that, Sisko is not suitable for command because anytime you're betrayed, he has his own form where it makes him go off the deep end. Now, obviously, I don't think they did that on purpose, but when you sit down and you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. You know? I don't know. By the way, if you guys, really cool, since I'm thinking about Trek Yards, they created their own ship, and it is it's actually they got with some of the creators of actual Star Trek ships, and I don't think they've come out with what the class is, but I think I'm going to call it the Horizon type. I'm going to do a Starship lore on it. I'm also probably going to do a Starship lore on the Foley class eventually. But go check out Trek Yards and check out that ship if you haven't. Spiritual Cry says, I think the greater impact is that the Federation knew what Sisko did and didn't dismiss his command. What does this reflect on Starfleet command? You know, so here's an interesting thing. I thought about that, and I was tempted to bring it up, but I didn't. And the conversation, and yeah, that's right. There's 54 people here and only 11 thumbs up and 2 thumbs down. What the hell? Don't be scared of the thumbs. Just hit them. I don't care which. Just hit it. But what the hell was I saying? I got completely off balance. What the hell? What was I talking about? Wow, I am completely burnt. We were talking about... I don't know. I don't even know where to go with it. So while you guys tell me what I was saying right before I got sidetracked, Trekyard says that it is Samuel's ship, not his, and that's true. But you can actually go see the Horizon class on the Trekyard's channel, and so to delineate from there, yeah. The fact that Sisko can't handle betrayal is why he went bonkers in his pursuit of Eddington. That is true. That is true. Oh, Starfleet Command. Feds are dirty. Starfleet Command. Thank you. Yes, thank you. If we remember in the Pale Moonlight, everything Sisko did was approved by Starfleet Command. They were 100% behind it. And so when they see this happen, when they see the bombing of a planet, and by the way, they detonated quantum torpedoes 50 kilometers above a planet. I could not find what the yield of a quantum torpedo is, but if I could, I would have made them eat those numbers, because I'm pretty sure they would have destroyed quite a bit, even if it was on the opposite side. But anyway, Starfleet Command was willing to do it, and I wonder if this wasn't the beginning of the end for Starfleet Command's purity, for lack of a better word. That they ultimately were giving up their ideals. And so, because of the Dominion threat, they looked the other way. Lore Runner, who I watch, and actually commented on one of my videos, which I thought was cool, is it not on par, because you can't beat Trek Yards, but there's a list of YouTubers that I have that's kind of like a bucket list that I would love to see them comment on my channel. And I'm never going to say it because I don't want to push someone to do it. But Trek Yards was one. That was a big one when I saw them. Lore Runner recently. But Lore Runner talks about specifically the slow degradation of Starfleet Command. And I think that he's on par because that does happen. But you know, I think that if it wasn't written on purpose, it is so coincidental. It's amazing. Let's see. Couldn't this be Super Saiyan Man says? Couldn't this be proof that Section 31 has taken over Starfleet Command since Sisko wasn't court-martialed? It's possible. I don't think Section 31 had a lot to do with this. I think more that this was Starfleet Command just slowly starting to slip. You know, you do good, you do work. Okay, well that's fine, Trek Yards. I mean, hey, let's have a channel war. Let's do it, buddy. Axanar forever. Hashtag. I'm a huge fan of that. I wish they would have done Axanar. That would have been very cool to have done the Axanar storyline. Or anything other than Discovery. But yeah, I mean, Sisko, I think, is completely in the wrong here. Sisko, this was an evil act to me. And the fact that he got away with it. And Dax literally caused me to have a negative reaction. When I was breaking it down, when I was rewatching this, she treats what he did like it was nothing. Like it was you know, just a horrific, horrible thing. Well, not that she treats it as a horrific, horrible thing. What she did was a horrific, horrible thing. She treats it like just another day in the neighborhood. She is so dismissive. It's horrible. It's just... LOL, Channel War, I was kidding. I don't want to lose. That's right, Trek Yards. As long as you remember where the pecking order is. Nah, I'm just kidding. Trek Yards is better than this channel by leaps and bounds. Starfleet was corrupted by the fanatic wish to maintain the status quo that the Dominion threatened to unravel. Yeah, or they... You know, yeah. Or a Taco Tinga. Yeah. I agree. That they stuck their head in the sand so much that they were willing to let things slide just to pretend like, you know? I don't know. I heard in Canada they don't recognize the CBS lawsuit ruling on Trek fan films. Axanar film in Canada, babies. I don't know. I don't know how that would work. I personally wouldn't go up against CBS. Do you think Disco was enabled to do worse stuff after this, like drag the Romulans into the war? You know, so here's my opinion on Discovery. especially with the more that I break down Deep Space Nine, the more that I break down Voyager, the more that I break down Enterprise, I find that Discovery is basically doing what those series did on steroids. Deep Space Nine pushed the mold by making Star Trek more dark. And bringing war into it. And sometimes it was insanely dark. Like the episode where we have Chief O'Brien about to commit suicide. Voyager did all kinds of stupid stuff, but are most known for not worrying about continuity. And you even have writers saying, we don't care about Star Trek continuity as long as it tells a good story. Enterprise was somewhat of a return. But still decided to take more progressive ideology and attacks on conservatives. It wasn't horrific, but more that way, and not as concerned about continuity. And Discovery basically took the dark look from Deep Space Nine and the war mentality from Deep Space Nine. They took the no concern for continuity if it's a good story from Voyager, and they hyper active pushed the liberal agenda that you see in Enterprise. And, you know, Discovery, on its own, it's bad. And I'm not trying to say that it justifies it. But they were already doing it to a mild degree. This is just, basically, every time they did a new series, it got a step forward towards those things. You saw a step forward. And what Discovery decided to do was saw where the line had been set, get in a plane, and fly as far away from that line as geographically possible and get out. By the way, guys, thank you so much. Super Chats are the life and blood of how all of this works. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Matthew Faustini, not saying I agree, but people in the DMZ gave up Fed citizenship after the treaty was signed. Not true. This means any colony that supports or hosts the Maquis are enemy combatants and supports Sisko's actions. Completely untrue. If you look at the Next Generation, Matthew, my good friend, in the Next Generation, we know that they are Federation citizens and they continue to keep their Federation citizenship. What happened in the end is Starfleet was going to forcibly relocate them because that always works, and they resisted. And ultimately, a treaty and agreement was made, which is how the DMZ was formed. The DMZ was formed in TNG, where the citizens would get to stay under the tender mercies of the Cardassian Union, but would keep their citizenship. And it is in that specific one. And they didn't sign the treaty. They didn't want anything to do with the treaty. They wanted to remain Federation citizens. And they weren't able to. Well, they were able to remain Federation citizens, but they stayed under the Cardassian Union, which was killing them, literally killing them left and right, and Starfleet would do nothing about it. I don't think that the colonies became Maquis. I think the colonies had a lot of Maquis sympathizers, but I don't think that the colonies themselves became Maquis. Probably most of them just wanted to be left alone. Worst case is the Hamas terrorist organization that we said, where the Maquis have taken over as a pseudo-government. All of this lies solely on Starfleet's doorstep, in my opinion. Bad words. In reality, why should Dax have been worried when Starfleet science has been able to undo worse disasters with science ex machina? Because apparently they couldn't in this instance, or didn't want to, or weren't trying. I don't know. I mean, in theory, I see what you're saying. Trek Yards giving me $5.49 in Canadian money. You know, I'm going to take that, and I'm not even lying. This is the first time a bigger channel than me and the most respected channel in Trek lore has given money. I'm going to frame it. Not even joking. I'm serious about that. J-Wigs. I did not think DS9 was dark. It was a galactic war. If anything, the producers held back on the grit war theme. DS9 was definitively darker than any Trek that came before it. Now, dark is relative, right? I think that they still showed a happy, utopian, human ending or world, but just more realistic. I still I think it's the happiest. It's the most hopeful I have for our civilization, if I'm being honest. But it was still dark because you had themes. You had the siege of AR. I always get it wrong. It's AR 558. You had O'Brien putting a phaser set to kill to his mouth. He was about to kill himself. So it was dark, but that's of course relative. But it was darker than TNG ever. Well, not ever, but it was darker than TNG generally, and definitely darker than TOS, in my opinion. I think. Lore Reloaded, just remember he gave Anti-Trekker more and gave to him first. I didn't know that. I mean, that's fantastic. Trek Yards can do whatever Trek Yards want. People make bad decisions all the time. So I mean, it's whatever he wants to do. Look, Farouk says, in my opinion, writers intended to make the Feds look super dark, given the context and the names used, mainly the Maquis. Sisko is playing Vichy France here. Sisko is playing Vichy France. Luke, when you say that, how is Sisko playing Vichy France? I'd be curious about that. That said, looking back, the writers wanted DS9 to be like the anti-TNG, and you can see that. TNG was all about the Prime Directive. TNG was all about being the very good boy, right? The soy boys, or whatever you kids say now. DS9 broke the Prime Directive multiple times on purpose. They destroyed a Galaxy-class starship. They did things like this. They wanted to be darker. They wanted to set themselves apart. So, when it comes to things like that, they did. That's why they were darker, in my opinion. Yeah. Not just Hamas. It pretty much resembles a lot of the current situation with the war on terror, says Tomas. Sure. DS9 was dark and gritty Trek, i.e. still Sesame Street. I agree. Again, it's relative. It was dark, but dark by Trek standards. Discovery is dark by any standards. I cannot let my 6 and 8-year-old watch it. I will not suggest to my girlfriend that her kids watch it. In fact, I would tell them not to. I would actively not participate in that. But I would let them watch Deep Space Nine. I don't think that that's dark enough. By the way, are you still going to do an episode or breakdown on Babylon 5 that I told you about? By the way, are you still going to do an episode breakdown? I think so. I vaguely remember. I have it in a file, but if I said I was going to do it, it's in a file and is intended to be done. Was the Maquis terrorist or freedom fighters? Were the Maquis terrorist or freedom fighters? How you answer the question helps determine exactly how wrong Sisko was. Every terrorist... This is cliche. By the way, 65 people watching, only half of that have thumbed up. What's up with that? Thumb down, thumb up, thumb down. See, Trek Yards has already thumbed down, both with the Trek Yards account and I'm sure Foley's account. So thumb up or thumb down. This is going to sound cliche, but one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. I sympathize with the Maquis, and I understand why they did what they did to a degree. I think that the need to rebel... I think the need to rebel, the attacks on DMZ targets and preventing and Starfleet targets to help the Cardassians makes sense. They went too far though. They got too zealous. Trek Yards, I thumbed up, dude. Man, I'm joking with you, Trek Yards. I'm just kidding. Even if you thumbed down, it wouldn't bother me. But I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. I know you thumbed down. They got too zealous. The best thing, here's what the Maquis should have done. the Maquis absolutely screwed themselves over. They had the absolute best chance to create their own government. And instead of assisting the Klingons, because that's where they messed up, the Maquis allied with the Klingons and began attacking into Cardassian space. Earthhound has to head out. See ya, Earthhound. Instead of attacking the Cardassians, they should have stayed within the space. Because it stopped being about the DMZ. It stopped being about getting the DMZ free and becoming their own nation or becoming Federation citizens again. They stopped going for what their cause actually was about, and it became about killing Cardassians. They really went the same route as the Bajorans did. I forget the name of the episode, but if you remember, and it was a great episode, very powerful, with Kira, where this person comes on, and I think it's like Hotep or something. She thinks that this guy is this horrific, like evil dude who killed tons of Bajorans, and she wants to kill him. And evidence starts coming out that he may not be who he says he is, but she doesn't care. She just wants to kill him. She wants to make Cardassians pay. The only good Cardassian is a dead Cardassian, according to Kira. But then she gets to know who he is, and she realizes that this isn't him. And she sees within herself that it wasn't about justice, it was about killing Cardassians. And that's what happened to the Maquis. It stopped being about the DMZ. It stopped being about being free. It started being about killing Cardassians. What the Maquis should have done is, as soon as the Dominion became a pretty powerful threat, the Maquis should have said, hey, Dominion, we just want to be left alone. We don't want anything to do with this. Will you sign a non-aggression pact with us? Or they should have joined. But either or. But I would have gone with the non-aggression pact. But either way, they would have been legitimized by the Dominion. Leave the Cardassians alone. Hell, do this. Do this. Ally with Starfleet in helping Cardassians and sign a non-aggression peace with the Dominion. Instantly, you gain goodwill across the galaxy. If the Dominion recognizes you, you're in. And by helping the Cardassians, you show that it's not about killing Cardassians. And I tell you what, when the Cardassians joined, dollars to donuts, the Dominion would have recognized the Maquis colonies, and they would have been their own government. And then they just had to go neutral. They said, hey, we're recognized. We ain't picking sides. We just want to exist. The Maquis had the perfect chance. Trekyard says the Bajorans are whiny and complainy. I hate them all. I did not know that Foley felt that way. They have some very hot women, though. Xavier Games. The Bajorans were practically Canadian in how peaceful they were as a society. Oh, and completely Canadian in that they rely on the Federation for their protection from any evil, just like Canada relies on the United States for any evil. So, yeah, I can see it. I can see the comparison there. The Dominion would have crushed the Maquis anyway, says Sky Bennett. I don't know. I don't know about that. Lore, you're being Mr. Hindsight. The Maquis and Cardassians did not know about the depth of the Dominion at this time. Yeah, okay. Sure. How does that impact anything? I mean, everything's technically in hindsight, right? But I mean, I don't. Sure. The Dominion. Well, I'll say this. The depth of the Dominion was well known. The power of the Dominion was well known. So I would disagree when it comes to that specifically. I would disagree that you couldn't see the forest for the trees. So I think that the Dominion, if they were wise enough, could have seen that. Or the Maquis, if they were wise enough, they could have seen that. But, you know, hindsight about getting, you know, killed, like massively slaughtered, sure, there's hindsight in that. I'll agree. Track yards. I never seen you so spicy. The problem is the Maquis weren't large enough, and with no government to speak of, the Dominion wouldn't have negotiated. They would have subjugated. No, I disagree, Sky Bennett. I disagree completely. Hear me out in here. The Dominion wanted to show the Alpha Quadrant that they could play ball, that they were the good guys. Unlike the Borg, unlike the Borg, the Dominion are willing to play ball, willing to create peace. And so they create peace with the Romulans. They create peace with the Breen. Was it the Breen? Yeah, I mean, ultimately the Breen ally, but I don't know if the Breen are set out. They create peace with all of these other governments. Why not the Maquis? I mean, that would be most governments, most governments, especially the officers, sympathize with the Maquis. You're telling me that the Dominion, looking out for the little guy, the Maquis, where Starfleet officers are betraying the Federation to help out the Maquis, wouldn't look good and wouldn't be a splash in the face or an open insult to Starfleet. Telling me that. Trek Yards, I haven't seen your show. What happened, buddy? What happened live tonight? See, now you got to tell me. Now I'm interested. By the way, Sisko, no one's going to talk bad. NorCal, I would have deleted it if I saw you talk bad about Trek Yards. Ain't letting that happen, buddy. Sisko used biological weapons on a civilian human population. He did. And killed who knows how many. In theory, he didn't kill anyone. We're led to believe that he didn't. Not that that matters. But he didn't necessarily kill anyone. The fact that Starfleet didn't do anything shows how far they have fallen. Still not as bad as Janeway. Hashtag still not as bad as Janeway. In many ways, the Federation making compromises to their ideals kind of feels like that. In 10 to 20 years, they'll eventually become a dictatorship or collapse. I think we'll see them become more of a military, a democratic military. And I think that's what you see at the end of Deep Space Nine. And I think that's where they'll continue to go. It may devolve into civil war. I've talked about this before. In my opinion, the only reasonable outcome that would make sense is for Starfleet, for the Federation to fall into civil war after the Dominion War. But that wouldn't be happy-go-lucky, so it probably wouldn't happen. I watched a bit, but Midnight Edge came on and jumped ship, says Valor. What are we talking about? Lore Reloaded. Just how did the Maquis get their ships and weapons from the Federation, since the main Federation Starfleet armed the Maquis? Could Section 31 have armed the Maquis? Section 31 could have. A lot of the resources they got were from Starfleet officers defecting from Starfleet. I think the demilitarized zone and a armed Maquis probably did suit Section 31 in some ways. And so, probably. But a lot of it just came from resistance, people not liking. Trek Yards, did I hear you correctly? Is someone bad-mouthing me? If so, I missed it too. NorCal said he was joking, which NorCal generally jokes, but I was saying no one's going to bad-mouth you. I didn't see him do it. Trek Yards, the next comment you have to do, though, is you have to tell us what happened on the live stream. So, you know, what happened. Lore Master, sir, I was being cheeky. No offense meant to you or Trek Yards, NorCal. Okay, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I was actually joking back with you, so I'm not even sure what you said. And even if you legitimately insulted me, while I may come back at you, it's very rare to actually get me upset or to have me be insulted. From that point of view, I'd see the Dominion using the Maquis as pawns in the bigger game. Can't really compare the Maquis to the larger empires. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying they wouldn't be used as pawns. I'm just saying I could see the Dominion allying with the Maquis. Anybody besides me want to see an origin story for the Borg and how they got to the point they did by the time of first contact? No, I don't. Let me say this. Let me be honest with you. The more we see the Borg, the less impressed we become with them. Anti-Trekker is right when he says the Borg were a good one-off and they should have remained a one-off. Or they should have remained used very sparingly. When Voyager advanced the Borg, they did it a disservice. And I don't want to see a Borg origin story because I think it's just going to further degrade the Borg. I think the same, Archangel Ortiz, I think the same way a ship disappeared from one of those shipyards in the reunification episodes, I bet smaller ships like those the Maquis used just as easily been lost. Probably, maybe. Trek Yards. Nothing happened really on the live stream that they did. Just people telling me my opinion was wrong when clearly they were wrong. The TOS Enterprise clearly has straight struts and needed them in Discovery, not angled struts. Yeah, oh my god, man. Welcome to YouTube. Welcome to lore channels in general. If you do any lore channel, Trek Yards, I'm preaching to the choir on this. I could resurrect Gene Roddenberry. And then bring the CBS head who decides what's canon, bring them together, have them say what's canon, and still people would tell me it's wrong. I mean, just, dude, Captain Batman was going on. I mean, that's just the way this works. Yeah. Love you, Trek Yards, but I like the angled struts. Okay. I mean, the new Enterprise is frustrating because I think they took liberties they didn't have to, but I don't get down to that. I'm not that big of a TOS fan. I mean, I like TOS, but unless I'm doing something specific to like the Constitution or something that requires the Constitution, I don't get upset about the struts specifically. There has been a few origin stories. Yeah, the one I like the most is the one with the Vulcan, not the Vulcan. Was it V'ger? It's on YouTube. Yeah. Trek Yards, they look great, sure, but it's not prime timeline. Trek Yards, buddy, it is prime timeline. Star Trek Discovery is in the prime timeline, so anything that happens in that series happens. So if it doesn't look consistent, it is. It is. The Borg's gravitas lied in their unstoppable cyber zombie nature, and like zombies, the Borg are better in small doses. I agree, or Atakatunga. So The Walking Dead generally has done this, may continue, but has done this, where the story isn't about the zombies, it's about the people, and the zombies are just a storytelling device. Telltales, which I know is Telltales, which I know is has a bad rap, but their storytelling when it came to The Walking Dead, I think, is excellent. Because the zombies aren't the story. The people are the story. So, Lore Master, if you had the option, would you have gone with the original Borg story arc, the parasites from early season of TNG? So for those who don't know, in the early season TNG, with the parasites, I forget the name of the episode, but the ones that took over Starfleet, it's been rumored and it's been half confirmed but half not that those parasites were supposed to be the Borg, and they decided not to do it because it's cheaper to just do humans and to do humanoid. I believe that was where they were going with it, but some people have tried to counter it and say it hasn't. I think it might have been intriguing. I think you could have written a good story about the Borg being those parasites and being able to not only have this tech that just can't be defeated, but even, just take over Starfleet officers. How devastating is that? But, it didn't impact me negatively the other way. I like the way they did it. I think that they should have stayed in Best of Both Worlds. The more TNG expanded on the Borg, the less impressed I was. And Voyager, I think, did it completely wrong. Just completely wrong. To go back to what was being stated beforehand, the Borg in Discovery, if I was writing it and they said, hey, you have to do Borg space, we're going to have the Borg, but it has to be in Borg space, I would write it, and I've thought about this. I never compared it to zombies, but that's the best comparison. I would write it like a zombie season. And what that means is that they were constantly on the run from the Borg. And the Borg, like zombies, anytime they showed up, people died. And they just barely got away. And I would, if I was doing it, I would probably, I don't think you should ever do this, the Borg. I don't think you should ever do the Borg to the point that Voyager did. But if I was forced to and I was the writer, I would probably have a species that lived in Borg space, that had adapted their technology to hide in plain sight, but it was still very, very, dangerous, and gone that route. Trek Yards, focused live videos don't really work with super chats and chat discussion lore. Okay, I don't know what that's in reference to, Trek Yards, but if you can expand on that. Do you consider the Borg as they were portrayed in Enterprise as different from previous versions? Because those ones struck me as the best war Borg. They were viral and had tactics. I don't hate the Enterprise Borg. I think you have to do some gymnastics to make it work. But I don't hate the Enterprise Borg. Arcantos, official canon means nothing to me. Here's the thing. If you don't like canon, that's fine. It's not a huge deal to me. The channel is based on alpha canon, and that's my shtick. Now, I do beta canon. I'm going to start beta canon series, but my main stuff is always going to be alpha canon. I like alpha canon because it's the only way to stay internally consistent. If you pick and choose what you like, then that's fine for you. And that's great. And I don't even mean that sarcastically. But there's no way to do internal consistency. There's no way to... Then you're just picking and choosing what you like. And so for me, Spiritual Cry, got classes 8 a.m. tomorrow. Bye all. Well, thanks, Spiritual Cry. Appreciate it. But for me, I like the internal consistency there. Everybody, say goodnight to Jamie by pressing J in the comments, because Jamie is going to bed, apparently. But yeah, so I think it's the best way to stay internally consistent. Now, if you don't like doing that, that's fine. And alpha canon is what the IP holder says. I've always stuck to that. So that means when CBS has said that alpha canon is anything on screen, that's it. With star charts being a special exception in specific points. Babylon 5. The creator of Babylon 5 has stated that what's on screen, the books, and certain fan theories. Okay. And so that's just what I go with. So that's where I stand on that. Talking about live chats, Trek-Yards IP holders are effing clueless, though. I mean, okay. I mean, sure. But I don't know that I think they don't care, but okay. And then I guess, I mean, we were talking about that off track. So Trek-Yards, I want to get Trek-Yards on the channel more. Just have conversations and stuff. And he was talking about how he's on Anti-Tracker. Anti-Tracker just starts a live stream and just talks about whatever he wants. I am so jealous that he can do that. You guys will not watch this unless I have a topic. And so I have to be more focused. I don't know that I would agree that it doesn't work with Super Chats and stuff. I'm doing it right now. This is focused in Super Chat. But yeah, Trek-Yards is going to be on a lot more with other channels too. Captain George I'm going to have on a lot more. I just got to get in the groove. I do. Yeah. Let's see. Lore Master, do you have a preferred Star Trek book series? Looking for something to read for a while. I would suggest Star Trek Destiny, though I haven't finished it. That's done really well. In Star Trek series, I'm only going to say Star Trek Destiny. If anybody has any suggestions, I put it in chat. Star Charts. Read Star Charts for sure. I'll tell you, let me say this is going to sound crazy. If you want good sci-fi, if you want sci-fi written just spectacularly good, read the older Halo series. Yes, Halo from the game. Those series is some of the best science fiction I've ever read. John Barry says, my theory is Discovery is just an elaborate Section 31 simulation to train operatives to do what is necessary. It's possible. Trek-Yards would suggest the Vanguard series. Fair enough. I don't think I've read the Vanguard series. Have you tried a random rant stream? That actually sounds like an interesting concept to me. I have, in fact. I get on. Anytime I talk about Discovery, it pisses me off. Simply because Discovery pisses me off. And usually I'll get to screaming. I'll get to cursing. It's really good for Super Chats. You guys love that. I can't do that for a living, or I would, because that's the way to make money right there. Every time I read something from Discovery, I get so pissed off just because of how you want to talk. Trek-Yards is sitting here talking about liars. Discovery, right there. And that gets me pissed off. Ed Lore Reloaded, what is your take on The Expanse? Love The Expanse. Did a couple of videos on The Expanse when it looked like they were going to be canceled. I've kind of deferred to Space Dock because Space Dock directly interacts with them. I might go back to it, but I love The Expanse. I haven't gotten to Season 3 yet. I think Season 3. I binged a lot of it because of how good it was. But yeah. Aren't all Lore's live streams ranty, says Vile Mike? Not that type of ranty, my good friend. If I buy the right to Middle Earth and fill it with spooky ghosts, they don't become canon. Arcantos, they in fact do. They in fact do. If you buy the rights and you put them in there as the rights holder, according to Alpha Canon, they do. But here's the funny thing, my good friends. Middle Earth actually does have things that are specters and could be considered quote-unquote ghosts. So there are, in fact, ghosts on Middle Earth. Hashtag mic drop. I call BS on both CBS and Paramount having to go change anything about the Star Trek TOS fleet. There should have been ways to modernize the Star... Yes! Captain Jesse 1. Yeah, I mean, look at Axanar. A lot of people was like, you have to do these changes. These changes have to happen. I don't think updates are bad, but Axanar updated and didn't change the core stuff. Star Trek continues, I think. That series did really well and didn't upgrade. So, yeah, I mean, you don't. Have you read Planet X? I have not. Rants are, from what I've learned today, very muchly worth it, says Kronos. They can be. My voice is going out. I am definitely not doing a video tomorrow. Ugh. Alright, guys, we're going to be ending it fairly shortly. Anything else we want to end with? Trek-Yards, I'll have to get you on in the next coming days, good friend. Ghosts in Middle Earth. That's white. Lore, what's your thoughts on Babylon 5 Psy-Core? I like how JMS fleshed Oitinus as a monster. Humanity made. Was Oitinus the black guy? I like I like Babylon 5 and most of its world building. I like sci-fi. I like how the Psy-Core was meant to be good and how most of the people working for it thought they were doing what's good. Good night, Robert. So I like some of the ways it goes. J-Wig, stream's too short. Okay. Thoughts on the new Picard series? I am not hopeful. They're using the same writers from Discovery. Yeah, Sinbad, you're talking about lore breakdowns on RuneScape. I said I'd look into it. Not put you on the spot, buddy, but any ideas about Star Trek Online? Oh, you guys kept bringing it up. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm going to start returning back to Star Trek Online and actually playing it and doing lore series. Again, I'm finding the time, but more and more I'm getting better. I think I'll be able to do it with this new format. One of the reasons I did this new format is because it makes it longer, which just helps me overall on every spectrum. And it's more researched. I feel like it's a better product. And I do it every other day, which means that it opens up to do other stuff. Having to do a video every day really limits me. And I'm thinking this is the way it is. Shadow Wolf says you were right about Sisko. Of course I'm right. I think the Psy-Core questioner meant JMS fleshed them out as the... Yeah, I mean, they were really fleshed out. I do like... Most everything in Babylon 5 is fleshed out. Let's talk for 6 hours about how Trek Yards is awesome. Okay. Are you going to start a new Star Trek Online character? I'm going to keep the one I have. Thanks for the info, because I didn't hear it, because I had to refresh the page. Oh, do I need to say it again, Sinbad? Because I can. Is that punchy behind you, says Kronos. And that's how you get banned. Everybody say goodbye to Kronos. Name Coming Led, am I here? Yes. Yes, you are. All right, guys, I think we're going to end it there. I'm fairly confident. But always remember, in the end, all of our lives are just a story. Make yours a good one. And now I'm going to wait because there's no music, apparently. And YouTube will straight up shut down my channel if it detects no sound, because apparently that's the devil. The just like worst thing you could do is not do that. And I also got to come here and go into analytics, look into live streams, go to events, wait for it to pop up because it's slow as hell, go to the live control room. From there, hit the stop streaming